Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it may be when you all are tuning into this broadcast. I am your international award winning author, literary extraordinaire, and awe inspiring coach, Toneal M. Jackson. And I want to welcome you guys to another episode of Inspirational Talk with Toneal. This is gonna be interesting, y'all. I have a guest slated to come, so we are. I know she's running a little bit late, but we're gonna just see how this goes, right? Because at the end of the day, one of the things that you guys do know about me is that I always have something to talk about. So finding a word to inspire you guys is never a difficult thing to do. So what I'm trying to do right now is just checking to make sure that I am still live and not having technical issues like we did on yesterday. But as you all come in, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, I do ask that you please come in, say hello. Be sure to tag somebody that you believe would benefit from watching this broadcast or even hit that share button, right? So before we jump into the show, couple announcements. Just in case you were under a rock yesterday, I did announce the release of well, I won't say the release, but I made the official announcement sharing with you guys my news about my upcoming project. It is a combo, actually a trio if you want to look at it. The Black Man Extravaganza. So pretty much what is happening is it is consisting of a book compilation that I am writing or that will be published, I should say, and it is me having interviewed 28 different Black men aged 30 through 70, various backgrounds, 12 different states are involved. So it's really my way of trying to get a different view, bring a different perspective to what we know as Black history, right? Kind of update it a little bit, letting you know that there are some everyday heroes right in your presence. And then we also are doing a documentary with that. And so on Monday, February 28th, we are going to debut all of that at the movie theater on 87th Street here in Chicago, Cinema Chatham. And we're going to do the release for the book. We're going to do the documentary debut. And then we're going to have a Q&A session. So that way you can kind of talk to the guys who were interviewed for the documentary, as well as throw in that award ceremony at the end. So many of you, if you know me, you know that I love celebrating others. I love promoting others. I love pushing others. Like that is a genuine passion for me. I love to celebrate people. And so on that night, we are going to be celebrating these outstanding, incredible guys who, again, they did what they didn't have to do. They agreed to the interview. They agreed to be vulnerable and to share some stuff. And so I'm very proud of what this work is becoming. And so I do invite you guys to go to my website. My name is Toneal.com, to go ahead and reserve your seats for this event. So this is a pre-order situation. The day of, it is not happening. You will not be able to get a ticket on February 28th. I need to put that out there now. So don't think that, oh, well, I'm just putting this out here so that you have until February 28th to act. No, no, no. So from so from November 1st through either when all the tickets are gone or February 1st, whichever one happens first, that is how long this window will be open. So there will be no coming to the movie theater and getting in for the documentary. This is a private screening. We have two theaters in which the documentary will be showing. And if you do not have a ticket, you won't get in. So in either case, you guys can become VIPs regardless of the level. I have 4 different levels. So whether you get the DVD, the paperback book, the hardcover book, or level 1 where you're able to get everything, hardcover book, DVD, movie ticket, as well as some Black Man swag. And the first 20 people, hey, Miss Kanita, the first 20 people to reserve your seat of the $100 level 1, you will be able to pick your seat in the theater. So again, there are 2 theaters to pick from, and you'll be able to pick which seat you sit in. So that is just an extra bonus and an extra thank you to you. So that is what's going on there. That was on yesterday. Today, somebody say today. So today I'm ecstatic because today is my oldest daughter, and it's hard for me to say my oldest daughter because I have other daughters, but my firstborn. So my firstborn, Autumn, today is her birthday. And you guys have no idea just like how excited I am for her. She's 19. I cannot believe that Autumn is 19 already. Hey, Miss Dolores. I cannot believe that Autumn is 19 already, guys. Like, and for all of my mothers, you all know I don't care how old your children are, if they're younger or older than 19. Like, it's always that moment where you're like, where in the world has the time gone, right? It seems like just yesterday I was pregnant with them. It seems like just yesterday they came into this world. I remember when, holding her in the hospital. I remember, we all as moms, I think, and I'm not, that's not to say that dads don't reflect as well, but I think that moms reflect in a different way, right? Because we have a different relationship with our children because we carried them for whatever the term, whether it was 9 months, 10 months, 6 months, 7 months. Like, there is just a special bond that you have with your children. And I always say, like, Autumn was born older. And what I mean by that is not just the fact that she was the firstborn, but Autumn came here responsible. Like, Autumn came here self sufficient. She came here just kind of knowing what to do. She was automatically programmed to be a helper. And so I just always say I thank God because He knew to give me her first, right? Yes, Miss Dolores, they grow up so fast. And so she has been happy all day long. She's not here, she's out, doing what she does. But I got up this morning. What is customary in my house is I always make my children breakfast for their birthdays, right? And so it doesn't matter how old they get, they're like, Mommy, are you making? And let me tell you, deep down, that is still, it feels good that they still want that, right? Because sometimes they do get so old and the things that you put in them, and it's not that they don't appreciate it anymore, but now when they start growing up, and especially they're adults or whatever, so they kind of have their own little thing that they want. So it deep down, confessions, deep down, it makes me feel good to know that they still look for that, right? So Jariah had hers on October 8th. This morning, Autumn had her breakfast. And so we'll see if Ariana is looking for hers on December 10th. Because again, anybody that knows me and knows my family, you guys know that we are in the midst of birthday season. So for me, birthday season is October through January. So I have October 8th, November 2nd, December 10th, and January 1st. So it's crazy in my house, right? It's crazy here. But we just, again, at the end of the day, we thank God. We have nothing but graciousness and attitudes of gratitude. And so I brought up Autumn to let you guys know that she will actually be my special guest tomorrow, because we normally do our educated and empowered parenting edition on Fridays. But remember, I told you guys that I will be in Dallas on Friday and Saturday attending the Woman Evolve conference with Pastor Sarah Jakes Roberts and others. And so I will not be going live on Friday. So what I do is I use Wednesday as my makeup show. And so she is going to be my special guest. And, I always tell people, like, I love her so much. I really do. Like, I love all of my girls, and y'all know that I love all of my girls. But I always tell her, even if you were not my daughter, you would still be my friend. Like, she is probably one of the greatest people you will ever meet. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, but she was probably one of the best things that I've ever done. And I didn't do it by myself, y'all. Like, she got a daddy. She got a whole daddy, but this is my moment. This is my platform, my moment. So I'm just talking about me and me as a mom and her as my baby, right? So in either case, I appreciate you guys watching. I'm waiting to see whether or not our guest is going to come on today. But even if she doesn't, right? So I do want to really quickly go through some things. I talked about this Woman Evolve conference, and I want to share a little bit more about that. Um, I am not one that really, I host a lot of events, but because of the fact that I'm I don't even want to use introverted around y'all no more because nobody will believe me. But I typically stay to myself. Like God gives me this thing to be able to be open for other people. But naturally, like if I'm at home, I'm a loner. Like I'm typically to myself, right? And so this thing is really different for me because of the fact that I was like, all I can say is I was compelled by the Holy Spirit that I needed to be in this room in Dallas, right? And I have no clue whatsoever what is going to come of this Woman Evolve conference, but all I know is that the Holy Spirit is telling me that I need to be in the room. And I'm sharing this with you to say to you guys that, there are times when the Holy Spirit will give you things to do that may be outside of your comfort zone, but there is a blessing in obedience. And I am sure that that is something that my guest is going to be able to discuss as she comes on. She has made her arrival, and so I want you guys to give a warm, inspirational talk welcome. I'm glad to be a woman edition to my guest, who is also my author. We just recently released her book earlier this year, and it is called Help, I'm Drowning: 7 life-saving tips to save your marriage or rescue your marriage. She gonna correct me because I always jack up that title. But y'all don't laugh at me. But y'all give a warm welcome to Miss Sharon Lockhart. Hello, ma'am. You laughing at me because I keep on jacking
Hello,
up that
I
subtitle.
am, I am. Yes, I am laughing at
I
you.
get the
Yes,
help,
I'm
I'm
laughing
drowning right every time. The rest of it,
at
I know it's 7 tips.
Yeah,
I know I
seven,
published it, so I'm supposed to
seven
know.
life-saving tips
Come
to
on.
survive your marriage. Survive your
Survive. Come
marriage.
on, y'all. We ain't being rescued. We surviving this thing. We got
To
survivors up in here.
survive your marriage.
We're coming out of October, which is cancer awareness month, and so we celebrate the survivors of cancer, and also domestic violence awareness month. So we celebrate those survivors. People, let me tell you something. I don't know if they make the such thing, Sharon, but they should have a marriage survival year, month, day, year. Like if you done survive some stuff in your marriage, I don't care if y'all watching this live or on the replay. If you done survive some stuff in your marriage, somebody ought to celebrate you. You need to have a ribbon or something. And it come on. And this is man, whether you man or woman, because let me tell you something.
Absolutely.
Being married is nothing to sneeze at. I don't care who it is. And a lot of times people will be on the outside looking in and say, oh, they're the perfect couple. They got the perfect marriage. Even those people have problems. And you wrote about it in your book. So why don't you tell us a little bit first about you, just in case somebody done been under a rock and don't know exactly who you are, but then also tell them about this book, the motivation behind it, and just kind of a little bit of a summary or synopsis of it.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for having me on.
Absolutely.
I enjoy talking with you and listening to you talk. So first of all, thank you. Now, hello to everybody out there. So the name of my book is Help, I'm Drowning: 7 life-saving tips to survive your marriage. Yes.
Yes, come on.
Okay. So my name is Sharon Lockhart. Most people say Sharon because that's how it's
Like
spelled, but it's
me.
pronounced. And it's okay. It's okay. So my name is Sharon Lockhart, and I'm an educator by profession. I've worked in education since 2001, I believe it is. So I've been in education for a long time in a lot of different areas in education. Currently a middle school teacher, pretty much for me. Um, I'm a pastor. I've been a minister. I've been an evangelist. I've been the usher in the church. I've been the one to clean the church. I've scrubbed the floor in my all white on a Sunday. I'm a
Come
Mhm.
on.
mother. I'm a grandmother. I'm a wife. I'm a sister. I'm a daughter. I'm a caregiver. So, I wear a lot of hats. I'm a lot of hats. But one thing I love God. So I'm a servant of the Most High God. That's most important to me.
Yes.
So that's me in a nutshell. Now, behind this book, so Help, I'm Drowning. Help, I'm Drowning. The original title was going to be Help, I'm Drowning in Marriage. Help, I'm Drowning in Marriage. And the motivation behind the book was simply that, first of all, I've been married for 24 years. This October made 20, I think it's 24 years. So my husband probably know better than me. So I think it's 24 years. This October 11 made 24 years, or 25, I think 24 years. And so, of course, I've been married for a while. I've been in marriage for a minute. And I know a lot of people that are married that have not, that didn't make it this far. My husband is in another room way upstairs, and he's just texted me and said 24 years. So it's 24 years.
Hey, they hear what they want to hear, don't they?
And mind you,
Like,
he's
you're
working.
right.
He's supposed to be at work. So, so yeah, I know a lot of couples that have gone through marriage crisis. I mean, we have our own situations here in my own marriage, but I
Yep.
know a lot of people, when I thought about it, and as Toneal worked with me when we started this project, and I had a lot of thoughts all over the place. And so, to Neil work with me strategically to bring it all together and to eliminate some things, to add some things. And then and the book kind of took a different turn from my original purpose. And so through each chapter, I talk about real life situations, people that I know, real life couples of situations that have happened that I was up close and up front and close enough to see what they had gone through and the outcome, or I knew some of the behind the scene situations. So, I thought that this would be a perfect time to just sit down and get some of that out of my head, even things that people have told me over the years about their marriage and their relationships that they had gone through. So I took time to just sit down and just talk about those particular situations that stood out the most to me. And as a result, here we go.
Help. Man, that
Help,
when
I'm
the
drowning.
song, help, I need somebody. You need
Seriously.
because I don't care how often you talk about whether you want to say relationships, generally speaking, or marriages
Hmm.
specifically, there's always going to be an audience for that, right? Because there's always somebody who is either about to get married, somebody who is struggling in the marriage, or somebody who is just divorced, right? So
Exactly.
it's a subject that never gets old. um when you were, I know you said that you know people in different situations of the book, which is where it came from, but you
Right.
you also kind of let them know that this wasn't necessarily where we were going to go with the book. So why don't you tell
Right.
them, like, what were your initial thoughts, and what was the initial vision for the book?
So the initial vision of the book is not too far from where it ended up, but the initial vision, or the baby stages of the book in my mind, was that there are so many people that I know now that are in relationships. And again, as Sunil mentioned, this is not just about marriage, but my focus was marriage, because most of these people are married. Some couples have been married for 30 plus years. Some are newly married. Some people didn't survive 5 years of marriage. And so my original thought was, help, I'm drowning in marriage. I'm in this thing, I'm drowning, and I need help, or this is not going to last. I'm not going to make it. I'm either going to die in it. And when I say die, I don't mean a physical death, I mean emotionally die. I'm going to lose myself in this marriage. And this was not just from a female perspective, this was from male and female. I'm either going to lose myself, I'm just going to walk away from it, or hey, I need help. What can I do to survive? What can I do to actually make this marriage work? And so that was my original concept for the book.
Absolutely. And I think that it is so important to note that this is not your typical marital or relational book written by a woman. Many times you'll read relationship books and it's by a woman for a woman. But like you just said, like literally, you wrote this book where no matter whether you're a man or a woman that's reading it, that they will be able to relate. And I think that that's so important because many times in relationships, we typically highlight what the women are going through, but the men go through. So if we want to just be fair, the men go through things as well. And it's not necessarily just as deep as cheating, because many times people feel that infidelity is the only thing that kills a relationship. But what else have you
Is
found
not.
to be some of the things, some of the reasons why marriages are suffering?
Okay, and I'm glad you said that because it's not just about infidelity. It's not just about somebody going outside the marriage because some of these marriages that I mentioned, many of them, as a matter of fact, there was no outside. There was
Mhm,
no outside interference. There was nobody from the outside. This was all inside. And
mhm,
so there were the issues of self-esteem, being psychologically abused, emotionally abused. There was some physical abuse. There were things where there was just no attention, whether it was the male or the female. The husband wasn't getting enough attention. The wife wasn't getting enough attention. They didn't even like each other anymore. So all of these are real things that happen. People,
mhm,
sometimes people wake up and realize, I just don't like you.
mhm.
I don't like her. I don't like him. And it sounds comical, but it is
But
the
it's
truth.
so serious. Yeah.
It's the truth. After the the wedding, after all the glamour, after the dating, and even for couple people that are just in relationships, not just married, after all of the glitz and the glam have worn off,
Yep.
and you take off them rose shade glasses,
Yep.
then you begin to see, hey, I didn't recognize that before, or I saw it, but I didn't think we would end up here with that. I didn't know you were like that. Hey, I didn't
Yep.
know that that's the real you. And
Mhm.
so all of these things begin to unfold in any relationship, whether it's uh, woman to woman friendship or male to male friendship, whatever it is in any relationship, even in friendships, you begin to see people for who they really are as time goes on because you can only suppress the real you for so long.
Absolutely. Hey, buddy. And here's the other thing. If it's just my friend and you start acting funny, guess what? I just won't be your friend no more. But I done
Absolutely.
married this person. So like it's
Ooh,
not always just as simple as saying you acting funny and I don't like you, so never mind. Like there are a lot of people who struggle in marriage because it became something that they didn't think that it was, or maybe this
exactly.
is what it was, but it evolved, right? Because I think the other thing that's important to mention is that when you're in a relationship, people change. And I don't think nobody really talks about that or give consideration to that. So, like, say if I don't care what age you are when you get married, 5, 10, 15, 20 years later, you're not the same person anymore. And so
You
if
shouldn't
you
be.
are exactly. But if you're not growing and changing with the person that you took your vows with, that's another reason why they wake up one day and like,
Absolutely.
really?
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
so kind of speak to that.
Right. And so again, even the situations, one of the chapters in the book, and so it talks about how there are couples that people that I know that, they were married, they got married and, and they would determine, hey, till death do us part, with this ring, I'd be wed and all of this. And so they're in the relationships. But as time goes on, just as you mentioned, people do change. And I don't think people wake up and say, hey, I just want to be different all of a sudden. People change because you evolve or you should evolve. The older you get, the more mature you should become. And then as we know things that you tolerated or were willing to put up with in any aspect of life when you were 20, you don't want to deal with it when you're 30 or you don't want to deal with it when you're 40. Lord
Mhm.
knows you don't want to put up when you're 50. So, so as we get older, you
Yeah.
take an 18-year-old, by the time they get to 25 or 30, they're looking saying, no, I don't want to deal with that anymore. You should get to a point where some things you just outgrow because you mature out of some things into other realms of life. And oftentimes, as we as we change and as we evolve as individuals, you may not be evolving in the same direction. You
Mhm.
may have your mindset, you say, okay, well, these were our plans if you had plans. These were our plans. So we said that in 5 years we were going to do this. Well, here we are 5 years. Well, we're not doing it. One
Mhm.
person is saying, well, no, let's wait. And the other person is saying, let's go. Then you have couples where one may say, hey, I changed my mind. I no longer want that. And that could be a deal breaker right there for the other person saying, but we got married or I married you, I entered into this relationship with you on the premise that this was our ultimate goal. And now you're telling me you don't want that anymore.
Changing
Now you're
up.
telling
Yeah.
me you don't want to go this way anymore. Or you're saying, yes, I do want to go this way, but I see you going in a totally opposite direction. So what do we do now?
hmm And that's good, because what you've just introduced kind of is the key of communication. Not saying that communication is the only key, but that it's important, because many times people get married and there was no communication at the beginning, right? So, like, while you're
Right.
dating, there isn't, let's sit down and let's kind of figure out, why do we want to get married? Because one of the things that I have found in my little journey, it's been almost 20 years, but one of the things that I found in my journey is, people don't, I think that when you first start out, that it is a thing of, well, I don't want to embarrass the person or embarrass myself. I don't want to talk about their credit history or their relationship history or their, because you don't want to lose the person. Especially, you talked about
Mm-hmm.
self-esteem. If you were suffering with self-esteem issues or rejection issues, it's like, I just want to keep this person at all costs. And that's for males or females, right? And so what
Mm-hmm.
ends up happening is, as you said, as you grow in a relationship and either you gain confidence or you're evolving, now you're ready to have conversations that truthfully should have been had before you did any type of exchanges of vows. Go ahead and speak to that.
Exactly. And that's why premarital counseling is so needed. I mean, real counseling. I don't mean that, come together 3 times and okay, boom, you go get married. No, premarital counseling is really crucial. And oftentimes, especially in our community, people now in our community just now opening up to therapy. Now therapy is the catch-all for so many people, and I'm not knocking that. That's wonderful. It's wonderful and it's needed. But I'm just saying. So now, therapy becomes like a cliche now. Well, my therapist. Well, my therapist. Well, if you're really going to get some help, you have really got to go to somebody that's not biased. Somebody's
Mm-hmm.
going to sit down, and if you're Christian, then you should want a Christian counselor. If you're not a Christian, go to a reputable counselor. Somebody's going to give you some good advice and walk you through things, because those conversations are conversations that we were not taught to have before even getting into it, before committing to a serious relationship. We were not taught to talk about finances. We were not taught to talk about what's your credit history like.
Yep.
We were not taught those things. We were taught, well, you meet somebody, you love them, we're going to get married, and
Yep.
just work it out. And that's what they knew to do. So that's what people passed on to other generations. And so that information now needs to come to a halt and say, no, you need to do this. This is what you really need to do. You need to sit down and get some counseling,
Yep.
whether it's spiritual or secular. You need to sit down and get you some counseling. You need to talk about these things. You need to understand your own self before you try to understand him, or before you try to understand her. Before you try to fix somebody else, you need to work on your own self. What are your own issues? And nobody wants to do that.
Yep.
Nobody
Yep.
wants to do that anymore.
Oh my, you done said a whole mouthful. For those of you who are just now tuning in, I am speaking with minister, evangelist, pastor, author, and all of these other titles that she is, Sharon Lockhart. And she is the author of Help, I'm Drowning. This is kind of what we're talking about. So if you know someone who's going through in their relationship, in their marriage, we ask that you tag them to this conversation, because we're going to be doing some real talk on today. And if you too embarrassed to tag them, just hit the share button. And if they your friend, it'll be on your page. Now, Buddy Gill says one valuable lesson that he received about marriage: we all have to learn how to fight. The goal is to reach an understanding, not to win the argument. We have to fight for each other, even if you have to agree to disagree. Now, you don't know this, but this is Professor Gill. He makes appearances from time to time. And when I tell you he gonna just drop some nuggets on you from here, I'm trying to tell you. So this is what is so critical too, because there's a period of time that it takes to learn how to mesh together. And for some people it takes longer than others. But what he said is a mouthful, that we are not fighting against each other. And I remember saying all the time, I'm not your enemy. I'm not your opponent. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're supposed to be on the same team. So if we're on the same team, then you have to understand whatever suggestions I come with, it's not to try to go against you. We need to be able to sit down and reason together. And I think a lot of times with couples, that's one of the things they're trying to see, who got the best idea. My idea is better than yours. And so we're not supposed to be trying to one up each other. It's supposed to
A
be
power
whatever
struggle.
good of the relationship. Go ahead.
Right. It's not supposed to be a power struggle.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be a power struggle because at some point throughout the relationship, as the relationship evolves, yes, one person, yeah, is going to compromise more than the other. But it shouldn't be all the time. It shouldn't be all the time. It shouldn't be consistent where one person is constantly compromising, because what's going to happen is, and let me say this, I don't claim to be a relationship expert. I'm just talking about from experience, my own experience and the experience of people that I know. So
Hmm.
it's not supposed to be a power struggle, and it is supposed to be about coming to a common ground to sit down and to talk about it. But when oftentimes what is happening is people don't want to sit down and have a conversation. People don't know how to sit down and have conversations without becoming angry, without becoming defensive, without becoming offensive. So then again, if you don't know how, you need to go to somebody that can help to get you to where you need to be so that you know how to sit down and have a conversation. You got to be able to talk. Communication is key. And communication, we know communication comes in all forms. Body language is communication. Words,
Absolutely.
those looks that we can give each other, all of that plays
Absolutely.
a part in it. What's not said is an even bigger part, and what's not said can
Yep.
speak even louder or scream the loudest than what you're actually saying out of your mouth.
Absolutely. And like you were saying earlier, when we were talking about counseling, we have to, especially in the Black community, we do need to overcome this spirit of pride, because universally we have a spirit of pride. And again, it goes back to what you were saying about what we were taught. This is a generational thing where what goes on in this house stays in this house. And unfortunately, it travels with you through adulthood. So now it's not just the things that my parents said and did. Now is when I become a parent and I
Exactly.
become a spouse. So now I don't want to tell anybody about what's going on. And so what we're doing, Buddy just said, the silence can be deafening. Absolutely. So what we're doing to each other, we never talk about. And the definition of insanity is expecting to get a different result when you keep on doing the same things. So I'm steadily having the same arguments. I'm saying the same things over and over again. At some point, I have to be able to say, what is it that I'm saying wrong? Or what is it that you're not hearing? What do you hear? When I'm saying this, what are you actually hearing? Because in my mind, this should not be something that's causing confusion or causing anger. So, what is it that is causing you to have this reaction? Because, especially when you're genuinely trying to solve a problem, then you're conscious about the way that you bring whatever the issue
Exactly.
is to your significant other. Like, I think that for me in my own relationship, trying to figure out the respect factor, because again, you have people that's coming from different backgrounds, right? And so if I grew up in a dysfunctional household and I grew up where heated arguments was a normal thing, then to me being loud is not the same as being disrespectful. You see what I'm saying? Like,
Exactly.
so the way that I was raised contributed to my belief system. So if I see my parents arguing with each other, but they stayed together for 20 years, then to me, arguing or loud talking or hollering or whatever, that's just another way of communication. But I had to learn, okay, this is disrespectful. Why is it disrespectful? It was, you see what I'm saying? So I had to learn how to make adjustments in the way that I talk, and whether is good or bad, right or wrong, it doesn't work in the confines of this relationship. And I think that that's also important too, to understand what works for you and your partner, and not assume that because it works well within your family, works well with your friends, that it will work well with your partner. So go ahead and speak to that.
Exactly. That's like if you come to my house and we have kids, and you see my kids jumping all over the furniture, marking on the walls, trash everywhere. Well, that's the norm for me. That's normal for me. That's normal for my children. Well, I come to your house and I'm thinking, oh, they're really strict. Oh, they got all these rules. That's norm to you. But when you come here, you looking like they live like animals. So
Mhm.
what's normal for one person does not look the same for everybody else. And it's the same thing with respect, as you pointed out. What respect is to me based upon my exposure is not necessarily what is respectful to my partner, to my husband, to my whatever in this same time. Okay, so it's not the same. And so that's what I'm saying. We have to have those conversations. And it takes some time. And even in all the conversations that you can have, is not until you're in one household and that you're living under one roof for a period of time. Because again, things that you tolerate at one stage in your life does not mean that you will continue to even desire to tolerate those things later, and vice versa. Some things that you did not tolerate, you say, okay, you know what? It's okay. I was tripping. I realized it was my thing, not that thing. That was my pet peeve, not his pet peeve. That was something that ticked her off. It didn't tick me off. So, we change. And sometimes it's interchangeable, but until we are ready to have grown up conversations at the onset, ongoing grown up conversations. And here's the worst thing to me, Toneal. When you are afraid to have a conversation, or you feel like, well, if I start talking about it, then it's going to create an argument. So I'll just keep it to myself. Well, then keeping it to yourself, you know what it's doing? Oh, it's doing some stuff on the inside to you.
It's
It's doing some damage on the inside. Whether you male or female, if you feel like you can't be honest and you can't be open, then you're living in a prison. You're in a
mm-hmm.
prison in your own home or in that relationship. Well, if you can't come to me as your wife, as your girlfriend, you can't freely talk to me, or I can't go to you as my husband, as my boyfriend, as my boo thing, or whatever the name is. If I can't come to you, then there's a problem. What is it about you that's preventing me from opening up and sharing with you that we can't have an open and honest dialogue?
That is good. I think you felt my spirit. You felt it in my shondo through the system, because I promised that was something that I was going to say, that it is very problematic if it is hard to have a discussion with your significant other, because
Hmm.
this is supposed to be the person that you can go to when you can't go to anybody else. Hey, Miss Shalonda,
Absolutely.
like, and I, again, there are different issues that have been faced over 20 years. Hey, Miss Mary. So communication style was definitely one of those things. But there's a difference between style of communication versus comfortability, right? There are sometimes
Mhm.
when, partners don't create what do you want to call it, a comfortable atmosphere, a safe space, an inviting environment, where I should be able, good or bad, hard or easy, I should be able to come to you and share with you whatever it is that's going on in my world. Hey, Miss Lisa. And I think that one of the issues is that we stopped marrying our friends, right? Because
Mm,
once upon a time, it was a thing where you married people that were your friends. Like, this is my best friend. So before you get married, you learn each other and you learn
right.
whether or not this is somebody I can be friends with. My grandmother would always say this. She would always say, and this is like not but to all of us, she was our little mother wit, she had all the wisdom. She would say, you don't want to just marry somebody because they good in bed. She said, because after a while, when you don't have sex keeping you together, then what else is there? And so many times people, I mean, this is grown folks conversation, but people marry just because, okay, well, either the sex is good, or because they're Christian, they're trying to legalize fornication, because I don't want to be out of sight of God, but I don't want to stop sleeping with him or her or whatever. And they still have not had the conversation. I don't want to just have a one night stand, or I don't want her or him sleeping with somebody else. So let's get married. But then you haven't had the conversation and realize, as you said, I don't even like you. Like, I mean, we might be cool if I put the sex off the table, or if I put the money off the table, because that's another reason why people get married. I'm tired of being on unemployment or on governmental assistance or this or that. It look like you got something, so I want to get
Right,
with
right.
you. And then once that falls off, wait a minute, this is what it means to actually be with you when the money ain't coming in. You see what I'm saying? So I think
Or when
that,
you got the money in it, or either when you have the money is there, or whatever you saw, whatever that shiny object was, it's there, but doesn't mean you're going to get it.
and it don't mean that once you do get it, that it's going to outshine the evil parts or the bad parts, right?
It
Like,
does
we
not.
like to
It does
think
not.
that money is the answer to everything. So you can have somebody like, what's the song? I can do bad all by myself.
I don't
So
need no help to starve to death.
Do you understand? So it's like there are some situations where you feel like, okay, well, I see that these are the things that I'm struggling in. So I
Mhm.
want to, and I think that that's important to be able to identify in somebody what would make a good spouse for them. Hey, Miss Jennifer, what would be a good spouse? So this seems like this is the part where I'm missing. But I think so. What I'm trying to get at is to say it like this: there are people who marry because they have holes and they're thinking that, okay, this person has the thing that I need. But what happens when that thing is gone? If you didn't take the time, and you said it earlier about making sure that you yourself are where you need to be before you bring yourself into somebody else's space. So if you're only marrying that person because they have money, what happened if they ain't got money no more? You gonna be mad because now I'm in this situation and what I was looking for is money, or I'm marrying this person because they good in bed. What happened if, heaven forbid, they're not able to function in that way anymore? Now you mad because you didn't get with them in the for the right reason. So I'm gonna actually fast forward the conversation, because what we're talking about is things that could prevent. So like, if you're dating, because again, this book, Help I'm Drowning, it helps you at any stage of your relationship. So what we've been doing, if you guys are just now tuning in, we've been talking about relationships, and we're talking about this book. And so we were initially talking toward the individuals who are in the dating stages, things that you all can do before you take your vows. Make sure you have these hard conversations. Make sure you know that you know the real reason why you're getting married. But I want to kind of get us into talking about, what about people who are in marriages, as what we initially were talking about, and they're drowning in marriage. So now all of the coulda, woulda, shouldas is good, but I'm actually in this thing now. So what would your advice be for them in coping with this stuff? Because they can't just say, oh no, never mind. So what do you advise for
Why
them?
not? No, I'm just kidding.
Can't stand you.
Okay, so I'm serious. I mean, people are doing it every day. I wouldn't suggest that. I'm not an advocate for divorce. I'm not. But there are times when we know that divorce is a reality. We know the separation is a reality. But before you get to that point, I think you owe it to yourself. I think you owe it to yourself because of the commitment that you made to do all that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Do the work in you first,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not always the other person. Even if
Mm-hmm.
it's 95% the other person, that 5% is still on you. So deal with your percentage, deal with you, work on you and how you might be able to better yourself to
Mm-hmm.
fit the equation even better. Okay. First of all, we can't change anybody. I don't care what you do. I don't care what you do. I don't care. You can go and take pole dancing classes. You can go and you can become a millionaire. You can go all out and do all kind of things. You can turn flips in bed. You can stand on your. It doesn't matter. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot change an individual. An
Mm-hmm.
individual has to first recognize. I have to recognize. You know what? This is some parts. There are some parts in me that are broke.
Yeah.
There's some parts
Yeah.
of me that are damaged.
Yeah.
There's some parts of me that's trailing behind. There's some parts of me that need to be corrected.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we would take time to look at ourselves and be really honest with ourselves, and yeah, maybe that your partner, your spouse, maybe they are 85% wrong. Deal with your 15%,
That's good.
and then bring that 15% to that 85. And if it still doesn't fit and make a whole, then you have a problem. But
Mm-hmm.
you owe it to yourself to try everything that you can, morally right,
Mm-hmm.
to make it work. If
Mm-hmm.
that does not happen, then what that means to me is, and again, I am not a relationship expert. What that means to me is that you are in a relationship with someone who is just either totally oblivious because they
Mm-hmm.
want to be, totally oblivious because they are not able to comprehend what is happening right in front of their eyes, or they just outright refuse to change. And that's a bad thing that we have as adults. This just me. That's just who I am. That's just how I am. Well, you know what? Keep being how you are.
And you're
You're
gonna
gonna be how
just
you
be by
are by
yourself.
yourself,
You bet.
or you're gonna be that person with somebody else. You'll have to be that person with somebody else. Because as we started this conversation off talking in the very beginning, Toneal, people change, people
Yeah.
mature, people evolve, and either you're going to grow together or you're
Yep.
going to grow apart.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to it. In premarital counseling, I've told couples, listen, you're like two different trees, two different seeds that's been planted. Now you got to be plucked up from your environment, from your soil, your way of thinking,
Mhm.
your way of I want it my way, my way, my way. And now you
Mhm.
both got to be planted in some soil together. And
Mhm.
that seed has got to go down. That means you're going to go through, you're going to have some knockdown, drag out arguments, disagreements. You're going to have to experience all of that. Or you might experience all of that. That's that dirt that's needed for that seed to go down. And then once you come up out of there, you're going to grow either together
Yep.
or apart. There's nothing else in between. And I think I use some analogies in my book about me planting some seeds. I took up gardening, minor gardening when the pandemic hit. And so
Mhm.
I tried growing tomatoes and bell peppers and cucumbers and all those things. And sometimes my cucumber plant just didn't make it. It
Mhm.
I don't care how many times I replanted the seed, it just didn't grow.
Mhm.
It was not in the right environment. And that's the same way it is with relationships. If relationships are not in the right environment, they're
Mhm.
not going to grow, they're not going to thrive. Now my bell peppers, on the other hand, they grew and they grew and they grew. My tomatoes, some of them grew, some of them didn't. So some of them
Mhm.
made it and some of them didn't. But we have got to be honest again. What are you dealing with? What are your issues? What's got you so jacked up? What's got you so messed up? Is
Mhm.
it always about the other person? No, it is not. The
Mhm.
main work has got to be done on you.
Come
That's
on.
where you've got to start. That's where
Come
you've got to start. And then after you've done all that you can, I'm going biblical, having done all to stand, and you
Yes.
continue to stand there, you have to look around and say, hey, do I want to continue or am I going to continue to stand here? Because I realize I'm standing by myself anyway. I'm
Mhm.
standing alone anyway. Do I want to continue to be by myself in a marriage? Am I going to be by myself in a relationship and just say, okay, it is what it is? What do you want?
Hmm. Yeah, I would always say if I got to do everything for myself, I might as well be by myself, right? But what we have to understand is so we have different people that's going to be watching this show, that's watching now, that will be tuned in. So for those of you who are believers, first of all, hear us when we said, number one, neither of us are relationship experts. Number two, neither of us are endorsing divorce. Okay. So we believe, as believers, we know that there is nothing too hard for God. So any of my people that's out here, you watching and you in a relationship and your relationship is taking a really bad toll, we are not taking it out of the hands of God. We're not telling you not to pray about it or believe God to
Absolutely.
be able to work it out, because we know that the Bible says there is nothing too hard for God. There are going to be some non-believers that watch this show, so they don't know to cast their cares or to pray. And I will even say this: there are believers who get divorced, and we'll talk about that in the final segment, because the fact is that it is a harsh reality that divorce does happen after you finish doing everything that you can do. Because I want to go back into some of the things that you said, and then I'm going to address some of these comments. Like, at the end of the day, the first thing that I feel that we do wrong is we're always pointing the finger at our partner, right? Or at the other person. And my grandfather used to always say, when you point one finger at somebody else, you have three more pointing back at yourself. So you have to grow up. And again, anybody that knows me knows I don't know how to sugarcoat. So you have to grow up and you have to be able to look at yourself. Everything is not always the other person. Like you say, 98% might be somebody else, but there's still something within yourself that can be changed. So
Absolutely.
your prayer should always be, Lord, make me be what I'm supposed to be. If you're not a believer, looking within yourself and reflecting to see what is it that can be done differently about myself, because we should always be looking to grow. We should always be looking to evolve, because if you're not growing, you're dying. It's really that simple. There is no in
It
between.
is that
You
simple.
are not growing, you are dying, whether that's
Absolutely.
naturally, whether that's emotionally, spiritually. If you're not growing, then you're dying. And so if you feel like on the inside you're dying, stop waiting for somebody else to give you life. Like, you have to learn. The Bible says you got to learn how to encourage yourself. You got to learn how to be able to see what it is that you need. So many times we give people more power than we give to ourselves,
Absolutely.
or we put more of an expectation of them, where you're supposed to encourage me, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that. And when they don't do it, now you feel some type of way because you understand that it's something that you need. But we have to find the power to do it for ourselves as well. If you know that you are a person that needs affirmation, don't just put all that pressure and burden on your partner to do it. And then if they don't do it, now you mad because you're not receiving it. No, if you
Right.
need affirmation, you figure out some affirmations that you can tell yourself that's going to encourage yourself, right? Hello to Miss Tanya. Let me go and just address some of these comments real quick. Um, Tanya says, I point the finger at me because I'm told. Let me see. I point the finger at me because I told me don't do it. I think that's he told me. I don't. I heard him loud and clear. Thank God for grace and mercy. But yeah, so like we have to learn how to look at ourselves as well. And again, that doesn't mean, so let me say this, that does not mean that the other person isn't at fault. We are not saying that you're taking away. It's just the same way with forgiveness. When we tell you to forgive somebody, when someone says forgive somebody, it doesn't mean that what the other person did doesn't hurt. It means that you're worth more than holding on to that hatred and that malice and all of that in your heart because it's hurting you. So it's the same thing with this situation. Saying to work on yourself doesn't mean that the other person is free and clear. But at a point, especially for my believers, you have to believe that God will deal with what they're doing. Let me see. Jennifer says that protection is no joke, and they will try to keep you in a cycle and a web you can't get out of, and will tell people you the problem and have them hating you. Absolutely. And I believe I saw Shalonda say something about narcissism. She says narcissism keeps
Ooh.
some people from recognizing their wrong behavior. We coming back and talking about these narcissists because I there are a lot that exist in every facet of the world. Like people think that they not in the church, they in the church, they in the world, we gonna leave that
They're
alone.
everywhere.
So
They are everywhere.
we have to understand that. And I want to end with Buddy's comment because he asked the question, is love still unconditional? And see, that's a good question because I think that when you really talk about um unconditional, unconditional means with no conditions. So no matter what. And I think nowadays we have a lot of conditions in which we're going to stay in a situation, which kind of leads to this. The Lord says, if your spouse is abusing you, what do you do? So I'm going to yield the floor to you in answering that question.
I would encourage anybody that is being abused, get out. My oldest sister was 33 years old and murdered at the hands of her abuser because she did not and she would not get out. There's a one chapter in my book where I write about a couple that I know when I was growing up, and they lived downstairs from us, and everybody thought they were just this beautiful couple. Well, he was abusive and he was beating her. He didn't kill her. One day she just got fed up and she shot and killed him. Get out. There's nowhere, and if you're Christian, there's nowhere in the Bible that's going to tell you to stay and be beat up. That's like if you go outside and you stand out there and somebody walk up to you and just hit you, you ready to fight back.
Mhm.
You ready to defend yourself. Well, the best defense for anybody that's in a relationship, whether you're male or female, if you're being abused, call 911 and
Mhm.
get out.
And I'm gonna
Get
say
out
this, and stay gone unless and
and
until
stay
you
gone.
see a change, because a real genuine God done told you change. Because again, I want to say that we are not endorsing divorce. Just because you
We are
leave
not.
does not necessarily mean that we're saying divorce. But find somewhere else that's totally away where you can be safe, because it's nothing like sleeping in the house where you feel as though you got to sleep with one eye open. You don't know what's going to be said, what's going to be done. And I can't speak
Right.
for everyone, but I too know situations that hit very close to home of people being abused, and it does not turn out well. And as you said in your book, Sometimes it's not the fact that the abuser ends up killing the abusee. Sometimes the abusee is like, I can't take no more. And there is a trigger moment. There's a moment where they snap, and then that's it. And so your life is worth way more than that. And again, I would say even after leaving, so if whether you separate, whatever you're gonna do, even after leaving the situation, I would still say to you to now look inside of yourself to see, is
Absolutely.
this a pattern? Do I typically end up choosing people who are abusive, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically? Because if I do, then that means that I have to work on me, because there's probably, as you said earlier, some brokenness in me, some low self-esteem issues in myself. There is something where I attract people who feel like it's okay and that they will be able to do this to me. Go ahead.
You're absolutely right. And this is not about abuse, but it made me think about something. This was after the hurricane, and I'm in Texas. And after Hurricane Harvey hit, and the lines were long to get any kind of service going to talk to FEMA. And we were standing in this line. I was standing in this line. I had been standing there for hours and hours, and it was extremely hot. And anybody who's been in Texas know how hot it can get. But I was patient. Of course, I needed to get to FEMA, so I'm in this line, and these people walked up and got in front of me. In front of, they started talking to the couple that was in front of me. So I thought they were just chatting, but they stood there. And so I realized they just wanted to get in front of me. So I tapped one of them on the shoulder and I asked her, what was it about me that made you think it was okay for you to walk up and get in front of me? And that
Mhm.
did something for me that day. And so in other areas of my life, I began to think, what is it about me that has caused people to treat me this way or to treat me that way? It's something in me that gives that off, or that is drawing that to people to say, hey, yeah, I can do this to her and get over. I can get away with it. I can treat her this way, or I can say this to her, and it's going to be okay. So we
Mhm.
have got to stop, and that's an excellent point, and stop and say, what is it about me that has
Mhm.
caused this person or that situation or these people to treat me this kind of way? And we're not saying, neither of us are saying that it's the victim's fault. We're not saying
Absolutely.
that at all.
Absolutely.
Let's get that out there. We're not saying
Absolutely.
it's your fault or their fault that they're being abused. What Toneal said and pointed out is that if it is a pattern, it
Mhm.
seems to be a trend that this is the only type of person that you're drawing into your life, you are attracting, or people are being attracted to you, then that are abusers. Why is that? What
Mhm.
is it about you that is drawing those kind of people to you? But we're not accusing you as a victim or accusing the victim. We're not placing the blame there. Let's make that clear.
Absolutely. There, because there's a difference between blame and accountability. So we have to know the difference
Exactly.
between the two, right? So if somebody, if you get raped, just say, we that's not your fault. You were not asking for it. I don't even care what you were wearing. You were not asking for it. So that's not what we're saying. We're not blaming you if somebody hits you to say, wait, what? Because a lot of times, going back to that point of narcissism that Shalonda brought out, narcissists will try to
Mm-hmm.
make you believe that it's your fault that I did this to
Always.
you. If you wouldn't have said this, if you wouldn't have did this, you made me do. So this is not what we're saying. This is not one and the same. This is not us saying to buy into what the abuser is saying and say that it's my fault.
Right.
That is not what we're saying. What we're saying is to do a self-assessment and to see, is it some type of brokenness that's in you? Because the point is that once you're whole, then the type of person that you're looking for is going to change. Because when you're broken, you're typically trying to find somebody that's going to help you mend that temporary brokenness. And so what happens is a narcissist hones in on that. A narcissist finds out, oh, she needs compliments, or he needs,
Mm-hmm.
this, or they need this or that. They find out what it is that you need, and then they use that as power over you. So it's
And they
okay.
manipulate.
Exactly. They use it to manipulate you. So what happens is when you find out, oh my God, like I really, for me, I'll talk about me. one of my issues was validation. I always needed, because I grew up with issues of rejection, having different daddy issues, not knowing my biological father until I was grown. And so figuring that out, like what I learned, because like within this last year or two, I had to do a lot of reflection within myself to figure out why is it this way for me. And what I learned was that these were causing issues that I didn't even give credit to. You know what I'm saying? Like certain things are deeper. Like we don't want to acknowledge it because we think that it makes us seem like we're weak, because you want to kind of just sweep it under. Oh, that couldn't have been that. Or I ain't gonna let him the fact that he ain't in my life really bother me. But
Mm-hmm.
it does. And you have to acknowledge that it does so that you can fix it. And again, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about with the counseling and working through things. There are some issues that happen to you that you may not realize that this is a trigger for you, or this is the cause for this, or this is so once you figure that out and then you fix it, it's just like it's the difference between you have a broken glass and it's shattered. No matter how much you put the glue and stuff back on it, it's still gonna be some pieces missing. Versus if you say, you know what, it's broke, I can't fix that, but I still want a glass, right? So now you may never be 100% whole again, right? Because there's certain times where it's certain
Mm-hmm.
traumas that's, you may not be able to
Mm-hmm.
totally recoup from. However, if I realize this is the problem, now I'm going to go and seek the solution, so that way it doesn't become a problem anymore. So a lot of times we are constantly going back, because now I want to kind of bring back Buddy's point to love it, whether or not love being
Mm-hmm.
unconditional.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to um if you don't unconditionally love yourself, it's
There
hard to
you go.
unconditionally love somebody else. Go ahead.
I think that sometimes people can love to a fault, if I can put it that way. Um, I believe, based on biblical principles, that love is supposed to be unconditional. Okay, because we know God so loved the world that He gave. We know that Jesus Christ died on the cross. All right, that's love. That's the ultimate act of love, that you give yourself like that. And I think that some people, by nature or their makeup, they are the ones that are the givers.
Mhm.
And so, because they are the constant givers, then automatically they're gonna draw a lot of takers. Take,
Mhm.
take, 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 take.
Mhm.
And they keep giving, 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 giving. And they do it even when they get hurt, even when their feelings get hurt, even when they're emotionally bruised, even when they're tired, when they feel like they don't have anything else to
That's
give. They
what they
keep
know to
giving and
do.
keep giving and keep giving because that's all they know to do.
Yes.
So they learn how to love people beyond fault. They learn how to love people beyond the hurt that they may have received. They continue to love people. That's unconditional love. But at some point, do you love yourself enough to say, hey, enough is enough? I cannot and I will not continue to give out when nobody's putting anything back in, when I'm not getting anything back. So that's like having a bank and you got all these resources. You're a resource station. You got all these resources. But if you constantly give them out, at some point you're gonna run out. There's nothing left. And then you have nothing left to run on for yourself. You don't even have fumes anymore. There's nothing left to give. And when you get to that point, if you don't decide what direction you want to take, do I want to continue to fight for this and love unconditionally, or do I need to walk away from this, even if it's separation, and love unconditionally from over there? So,
Mhm.
yeah, you should continue to love, but at some point, there are some lines, there has to be some defining lines within your own
Mhm.
consciousness to say, you know what, I want to love people. I'm going to continue to love him. I'm going to continue to love her, but just not the way I've been loving. I have to
Mhm.
change and I have to tweak and I have to alter the way I love that person.
Mhm.
That's still loving unconditionally. So it's not like you saying, I love you if you do this. I love you if I get that. That's conditional love. You
Yeah.
can love unconditionally and still set boundaries and still have some defining moments in your life.
That is so good. Mary Hill said that you keep on giving out, you're gonna go bankrupt. And that's even something that
Absolutely.
Buddy had said earlier, that you have to be able, it has to be a balance. It has to be withdrawals and deposits. So yes, I can give, and as you said earlier, it may be unbalanced where there's one person that does more compromising or one person that does more give. But at some point, you have to replenish, you have to refill, right? And it's just, it's so critical, as you said, that those adjustments be made. And that's actually a life lesson. That's not even just relationships. Like if you got people and every time you turning around, because when you think about it, they don't love you unconditionally. They only, if it's always, you have to do this for me, I need you to do this for me, can you do this for me? So that means that if I'm only around because of the things I do for you, then there's a condition in which you have me in your life. So that point, the point to that being, like you said, I can still love you. Just because I'm not your slave, just because I'm not your maid, don't mean that I stop loving you. It means that I put boundaries, and you will really see who is there for you, not the smart person, not because, so not the hairdresser, not the maid, not the account, but just who you are as a person. When all the titles are gone, when all the lights and stuff is gone, just who you are. So if I don't ever do anything for you, will you still be there? And there are a lot of people who done lost a whole lot of friends because I stopped doing this, because I said no, because I know. and
Yeah.
and if you're only here because of what you can get from me, or what I'm able to do for you, then that's not unconditional love either. So like you said, we have to look at both sides of the coin. It's not always just the person that's given, but it's also the person that's taken. Like at some point should be, am I taking too much? Like,
Mm-hmm.
when was the last time that I did for him or for her? When was the last
Mm-hmm.
time that I gave to them? If it's always I'm the one that's asking for this favor, asking to go here, asking for you to do this, then we need to be able to check ourselves on that too. So again, what I want to do now, y'all, and these are great questions and comments and stuff, but I want we gonna fast forward to the end of the book, y'all. I didn't know Sharon's already over an hour. I didn't know, girl. Me and you be talking for a long time, so I didn't know. I had to pay attention. Dolores says she's so glad that she tuned in tonight. Shalonda said that this is an amazing topic tonight. So I'm glad that you guys are
Thank
really
you. Thank you for
for.
joining.
Absolutely, absolutely. Jennifer says we oftentimes mirror our parents. We often go down the same paths in a way that we repeat a lot of what they did unless we recognize it, heal, and break it off of our lives. Absolutely, I agree with
Yes,
that.
yes, yes,
Like
yes, yes.
is is you can only repeat. You do what you know. I'll put it like that. You do what you know, good or bad, until you learn something different. You do what you know. So, for those of you who are tuning in, we are speaking with author in this capacity tonight, author Minister Sharon Lockhart, and we are talking about her book Help, I'm Drowning. And what we initially started off talking about was doing the dating phase, giving you guys some things to look out for, questions that you may be able to ask, or want to open your eyes for, red flags that you may recognize early on. So we're not saying don't go through with the marriage, but we're saying before you walk down the aisle, these are some things you may want to do. And then we spent a great part of this conversation talking to those who are already in it, and you struggling and you drowning, and we're trying to help you work through those things. Shalonda says, how can she purchase your book?
Okay. So you can reach me via Facebook. Send me a friend request. You can also reach me on my Facebook women's group page at CCW. It's Circle of Christian Women. You can send me a friend request, and you can contact me through that. I can also be reached at 773-892-6882. 773-892-6882. I can be reached at that number. You can email me at msslockhart, LOCKHART 55 at gmail.com.
Okay, you gonna give me that email one more time.
MSS Lockhart 55, the number 55 at gmail.com.
Okay. I just gave y'all everything except for the phone number. So you can friend request her. There's her name. Go to her Facebook page, CCW, and then it's MSSLockhart55 at gmail.com. So you guys can just connect with her, hit her in the inbox. And if you get the book directly from her, then you'll be able to get an autographed copy and she'll, take care of you real good with that. So we definitely want you guys to support what it is that she is doing. Now, we're going to talk about the last part. For those
Okay.
who have actually had to go through divorce, and now so either they are divorced or they are knowing that this is their fate. Two things. One, you have a lot of people, especially people that's in the church, that feel as though God won't love them anymore because this is the ultimate sin. To that, what do you say?
That's not biblical. That is not the ultimate sin, number one. And I know that oftentimes, let me share a very personal. This is very personal. I got married when I was 19. I got married when I was 19. Not this marriage. I got married when I was 19 because I wanted to give my life to the Lord. And the church that I was introduced to, they said, "You had a boyfriend?" I was like, "Well, not really, kind of." They said, "If you got a boyfriend, you need to get married."
Wow.
And so I did. Out of ignorance, I didn't know any better. But I figured they knew better than me. Was not the case. I got married because the church told me to. I love the church, and I'm not saying anything negative about the church because I'm a part of the church. So I got married, and I was married for a total of 6 years, in the marriage for 5 years. Domestic violence, spouses on drugs, uh, you name it. I went through it out of ignorance because the church told me to. They didn't know any better, and I didn't know any better. It is what it is. It happened. I had to live through that. I had to grow through that, and I had to heal through that. I'm saying that to say you've got to know that, first of all, the Bible says that there is therefore now no condemnation to
Condemnation.
those who are in Christ Jesus,
That's it.
who walk after the Spirit and not after the flesh.
Mhm.
God never stops loving us. I don't care. We can be the worst of sinners. God never stops loving us. He will correct us and chastise us, but God never stops loving us because of the things that we do or the decisions that we make. And I hate to say this because it seems that it gives people the notion that we should be able to do anything and still go to God and say, "Okay, I'm okay,"
Mhm.
because God is a forgiving God. God knows who you are. God knows you by name. God knew you before you knew yourself, before
Come
your
on.
mother and father
Come
ever
on.
met, before you traveled through the whole process. Okay. So God already knew you. So again, I'm trying to choose my words carefully. Again, I think that if we would take time to really go to God and let God do a work in us and do all that you can do your part. You're not responsible for the other person's portion, the other person's part. Do your part as unto the Lord, like the Bible says, do your part. If that other person does not conform,
Yeah.
then you and God have a conversation. And it will be between you and God. It's not between you and the deacon. It's not between you and the pastor. It's not between you and the parishioners. It's between you and God and what you feel God has given you, what you feel God has told you or telling you to do.
Mhm.
Okay. And I know that there are going to be some people that will watch this later, maybe on and say, God will never tell you to get a divorce. I don't know what God would ever tell the person to do. I'm saying that you've got to make a decision and be willing to deal with the consequences of whatever decision that you make. You've got to be mature enough to accept it. If you say, I'm out of this marriage, then you've got to be able to deal with whatever that brings. If you say,
Mhm.
I'm going to stay in this marriage, you've got to be able to deal with whatever that brings. Because nobody can tell you stay or go. That's something that you have got to decide for yourself. And that's going to be between you and God and the fallout of it, either way.
That is such a mature answer. And when I say that, I don't even just mean age wise. I mean, you can tell that's some life experience in there, right? Because here's the thing, so many people, and I ain't talking about nobody that's watching this right now. I'm just saying in general, there are so
Right.
many people who they're waiting for somebody to tell them what to do. So, like I'll go to this counselor and I'm wanting the counselor to tell me you need to go get a divorce. I'm wanting the pastor to tell me you need to stay with him. I want but at the end of the day, as you said, you're the person that's going through whatever it may be, because you can make up whatever story that you want to tell. And it's not saying that you're not telling the truth, but we always
Right.
say that three sides to every story: yours, theirs, and the truth, right? So all I can do is advise based upon what I know. That's still not the whole story. And at the end of the day, most of the time, you already have in your mind what you want to do. You're just trying to talk to the person that you think that's going to tell
Right.
you what it is that you already trying to do. And then what'll happen is, if I do what, so now I'm going to go to Pastor Lockhart and I'm gonna tell her everything, and I'm okay. I just need you to vibe off of me, say what it is I want you to say. Then
Right.
she told me to leave. So if I leave, then now I can say, well, Pastor Lockhart is the one that told me to leave. You see what I'm saying? And this is
Absolutely.
why I say that what you said comes from a very mature place, because when you are dealing with these type of issues, you got to put on your big girl, your big boy shorts, and you have to be able to have that very real conversation with yourself, because even beyond the conversation, the latter part of what you said is what it is. There is going to be fallout or backlash either way. When you get to a place in your relationship where you're contemplating divorce, that means that it's already bad. So if I leave, what it's sometimes it's not even benefits, it's not even pros and cons, it's what do I gain if I leave? When you have lost your sanity, if you have lost your peace, you lost your joy. So again, a lot of times when we talk about domestic violence, we harp on the physical part, but there's so
Mm-hmm.
many other ways to abuse somebody where you can
Yes.
literally kill their spirit, where they're just
Yes.
a shell of a person. And so if when you say, okay, well, I'm going to leave because I need my joy back, understand that that's your decision and that's your choice to make. But everybody, since you're steadily listening to other people, everybody may not always be happy that that's your decision. So that's why it's important that you know that this is what it is I have to do for me. Because guess what? I don't care what you have to say, because you are not the person that's in this position, right? And on the same tip, if you decide that you want to stay, understand what you're agreeing to stay in. So it's not
Right.
necessarily saying, that I'm staying because I want to endure mess. But if in your heart you believe that this can change, then keep fighting toward that change, right? Buddy said it earlier. You shouldn't be fighting with each other, but you're fighting for each other. So even if you see that he or she is not doing the way you want them to do, then again, we say, if you have made the decision that you want to keep this relationship, then that's when you got to start praying and saying, Lord, look, I need you to change him. I need you to change her, change us, whatever, because this ain't working. And if your belief is that God is leading you to stay in that relationship, then Lord, I'm trying to be obedient to your word. So I need you to help me in this situation. This is what we're saying. We're not telling y'all to leave. We ain't telling y'all to stay. We're telling you to be able to be adult enough to try everything in your power to try, adult enough to not just point the finger at the other person,
Right.
but be willing to sit down and assess yourself, adult enough to make the decision and then stand firm on whatever that decision may be. So, that being said, Miss Sharon, you have
Absolutely.
any final remarks? Because I want you to have the final words and the benediction. So,
I really don't. I
okay,
mean, I think it's been said, and you just summed it up. I mean, you have to you you have to be prepared to deal with the fallout either way. If you have children, if you
yeah.
don't have children, if you are that quote unquote power couple that people have looked to, and people looking from the outside think that you all are just, oh my God, you all are just the bomb couple. You are the perfect couple. You are the epitome of marriage, and you know that that's not the truth, but you can't tell them that.
Mhm.
And then they look up and say, well, if they didn't make it, okay, you got to be able to deal with that. You got to be able to deal with that. You got to be able to deal with the people that you know, the relationships that you've built as a couple. You got to be able to deal with all of that, you know. But again, the bottom line is, what do you want? What do you want? I know a couple right now. They've been married for a long, almost 40 years,
Wow.
and one spouse has had every right, even biblically, to be divorced 1,000 times over. And when they talked to me, all I said was, "What do you want to do?" "I want my marriage." "Well, let's pray."
Mm-hmm.
It's That's what it is, and nobody can fault that person for saying they want the marriage. Some people say, "Oh, I would have been gone." Well, that's you. You would have been gone. You're not in it. That's not the person you married. That's the person that they married. So
Mm-hmm.
you've got to be, again, mature enough and adult enough to make your own decision and be ready for the fallout. Either way, there's going to be a fallout. There's going to be a fallout either way. So you got to be mature enough to make that decision. Just don't be hasty into rushing into anything. Wait, wait. Unless it's abuse. I'm not telling anybody to stay. But if you choose to stay in an abusive relationship, even in that, that's your decision. And nobody can tell you that you have to get out. You got to want to get out.
Mm-hmm. I hear another book in my spirit. Be
Oh,
ready for the
absolutely.
fallout. Be ready for the fallout. We done said that like 3, 4 times. Be ready for the fallout. I'm trying to tell you. Look, Professor Gill said this topic, this show pretty much begs or demands for part two. So thank you so, and thank you to all of y'all that tuned in. It, because
Thank
again, I
you.
said we said it, I think at the top of the show, anytime you're talking about relationships holistically or specifically like marriage, it's always going to be something, because there's always somebody that's about to get into it, somebody that has been there and they're not in a good place. And that's not to say that all marriages are in a bad place, but we just talking
Right.
about the concept, the content of the book. So the book is geared toward people who are either coming toward marriage, so you guys are dating and thinking about marriage, people who are struggling within the confines of the marriage, or borderline divorce, or have divorce, right? So we want to also say that we know that there are some success stories like Sharon and her husband, who's been married for 24 years, but do understand that no marriage is without problem. Like there is no such thing as a perfect marriage. And I'll say this real
That's
quick.
right.
For many years, we saw on the internet people hashtagging Will and Jada as relationship goals. As you were talking about that power couple, that kind of made sense to me, right? Like it was so many years, people, they're both in Hollywood, they're both gorgeous, this and this. But then when the situation came out with that whole
Hmm.
entanglement thing, it really made people start thinking. And this is why it's so important not to put people on pedestals. I say it all the time. Society has a real good habit of putting people on, and it's not a good habit, it's a bad habit, but they have the habit of putting people
Right.
on pedestals. And at the end of the day, people are people. I don't care whether you're a celebrity, whether you're an athlete, whether you're an everyday person. We all have our issues. We all go through things. And so you don't ever want to make it be that this person is your ideal. If Jesus ain't your ideal, then we gonna just don't have one. You see what I'm saying? Like, because that's the only person that was without sin. And so in either case, I want to thank you so much for
Thank
making some
you.
time to come on here. And I believe this was great conversation tonight. Anybody, if y'all are watching and you're not already linked up with Minister Lockhart, do that yourself a favor and connect with her on Facebook. She got a little space left. She got a little room. She might accept your request. So you can connect with her on Facebook. And then for all of my, is it your women, your group is just for women. So all of my
It's
women,
just for
you
women.
can go
Yes.
to the CCW page and then request to be a part of that community. If you like the wisdom that she gives here, she does it there as well. She's not just wise on this show. This is universally who she is. So in either
Thank
case, you
you.
guys can connect with her to make sure that you get a copy of her book. We went a little long, but I thank you so much for your patience. I thank you guys for tuning in. And apparently we did all right. They didn't mind that we went too long. They still want another part. So we'll see what we can
Thank
do about
you
that,
all.
right? But I do. I thank you so much for your transparency as well. And this will be the last thing that I say. I thank you for your transparency because, especially in um, the church has a reputation for, and I'm not saying this is everybody in church because it's not what I do, it's not what you do, but
Right.
holistically, the church has a reputation for not being transparent. The irony, right? Like when you think about the church, everybody automatically thinks that everybody are all women are wearing dresses all the way down to their ankles, and you ain't never did nothing wrong. You've been saved since you was 6, and so that many times when people come in from the world, they get judged because people who've been in the church, they've been in so long that they done forgot
Right.
what they used to do
Right.
and what they used to be. And I always say that we go through not just for ourselves, but because there's going to be somebody else who needs to know your story. And so we cannot
Yes.
allow guilt or shame to keep us from telling somebody what may be able to help them in what they're dealing with right now. So thank you so much for your transparency on today. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. I know that they loved it. I appreciated it. And we are going to let you guys go on tonight. And I ask that you guys come back tomorrow and that you join me. It's a special edition because I normally don't go live on Wednesdays. However, normally I go live on Friday with Educated and Empower, and this is the parenting edition. So I am slated to be joined by my Autumn, but because I'm going to be in Texas Friday and Saturday, then we got to do the show early. So today is her birthday. So we don't talk about what she did because she's still gone. I would say she thinks she grown, but technically she is. So today she's 19 today, so she is out and she's having a blast. So we will let you guys in on what happened on yesterday and what's been going on with her since she's been doing books and now she's a college freshman and all of that. So you guys join me
That's
tomorrow
awesome.
with for Educated and Empowered with my daughter Autumn. And I ask that you, if you enjoy this show, that you please tag somebody that you believe would benefit from the broadcast and definitely hit that share button. I love you guys so much. And until next time, you all stay inspired.